So let's do it this way. Let's go in order of simple and easy to difficult and complex. Aristotle, eudaimonia, virtue. I think it's the easiest, and I'll tell you why. I think the ideas of people like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle are really just Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, are really for advanced people. One of the things you need to understand about Aristotle before even engaging in any of his ideas is that he was a disciple of Plato's for about 20 years. I don't know if you know what it means and how it feels to be a student of someone for 20 years. And Plato was no ordinary human being. Plato was a student of Socrates for almost 10 years. And he was very much like, what's his name in the Gospel of Mark? He is a Roman guard, centurion. A centurion, very much like John, not Peter, but John, he actually saw Jesus nailed to the cross. And it was only centurion who said that Jesus was really no ordinary human being. He is in fact the Son of God. And you need to understand the impact that it has on your psyche when you stand there and you slowly watch someone bleed to death. And then you come to realize something profoundly important, that this is just not a regular Joe Schmo. This is Jesus, who's been Christed by God. And then you kind of just leave your post and you go into the mountains and you become a celibate, you become a monk, and you try to figure out who you are for the rest of your life. So if you have someone like Plato, who's a young chap, following someone like Socrates, an old guy, and being influenced and brainwashed in a nice way by Socrates, where at the age of 25, 26, 27, maybe 30, you kind of create your own school. And then it's not really a school for public, it's a cult. And before anyone is able to come in and learn from you, you have to interview them. It's like dating. Plato doesn't want to waste his time, so he dates you. And he has a list of questions, and should you fail any of these questions, you're just out. And imagine Aristotle going to the interview, and Plato is interviewing him, and he's asking all these difficult questions. Now, if you go to Peter's question about how does one mold oneself, Plato was molded by Socrates. I mean, he's not being molded by Snoop Dogg or Rihanna or Miley Cyrus or Brad Pitt. It's Socrates, one of the giants of human beings. And Aristotle gets molded by Plato for 20 years. And so when he talks about virtue, it's the stuff that he learned from Plato. And Plato has learned his stuff from Socrates. When he talks about eudaimonia, the demon of happiness, he got that from Plato. Plato did. He got that from Socrates. And then Aristotle got that from Plato. So you need to understand that Socrates was groomed, molded by a woman who was touched by God. Plato was molded by a man who was touched by a woman who was touched by God. Therefore, Socrates was touched by God. Therefore, Plato was touched by God. And then you have Aristotle, who is touched by Diotima, by Socrates, and by Plato. I mean, talk about this buffet of giants. Who amongst us has that luxury? No one. So when Aristotle talks about virtue, you need to understand this is no ordinary moral guidelines. It's like the 10 Commandments. Now, there is one more thing you need to understand about all these ideas. Can I write them down? And this is good for all of you to remember because depression, molding, getting a soul. celebration, we'll do the last ambition and all that stuff. See, you hear something, right? And whatever it is you are hearing, it gets filtered. It gets filtered by what we call a self. And the self has a good amount of past in it. And this past creates your history. And so history always becomes a filtration system for whatever it is you're hearing. So it's always going to be fragmented, whatever it is that you're hearing. Okay? Now, let's say that you have, for some strange reason, gotten rid of all of this. That you come to class and you're completely open, unvarnished, untainted. You're just basically hearing, and you're paying attention to what you're hearing, you're observing, you're reflecting. Okay? So, and let's say you go home and it takes you some time to process everything that you've heard in this class. What you have is an intellectual or abstract understanding of what you have heard. How do I get a soul? How can I find someone like Socrates who can mold me the proper way? So when I get to be 60, Amir's age, I won't have as many regrets. What sort of things are worthy of celebration? Why people get depressed? And why can't they overcome it? What sort of ambitions should one have? All these questions are the same thing, right? To some extent. Now, here's the thing about abstract understanding. It has a good amount of imagination and fantasies in it. They are untested. It's like an 18-year-old going to the mother and saying, I'm in love with Johnny or Bobby. Well, that's great. I'm glad that you've experienced love. But your mom, your dad sits back and observes the idiot that you brought home and looks at you and says, son, they're no good. You say, Mom, what the hell do you understand about love? You know. So remember, intellectual understanding, like what is Aristotle, what does he talk about virtue and all that stuff, regardless of how great and how eloquent I'm able to express my understanding of Aristotle, when it gets to you, all you have is a set of assumptions about virtue. That is called an intellectual understanding. Now, what you need to do with that, if you really, really want to understand it, you need to take your abstract, imagined set of assumptions into the real world. Fall in love. Get married for love. Stay in the relationship, and life will slap you around a little bit. It'll remove all your assumptions. It will get rid of all the abstractions. And one of the nice things about having life test your intellectual understanding is that you will get rid of most of the things that are not essential. You know why professors and those who go on the stage and just talk this really, really nice and great talk, why they have so much viewership? You know why it's so easy for people to go on the stage and talk? Because everything is abstract. Nothing is being tested. Nothing is being wrestled with. They're on the stage, there's the audience, they look at them and they talk for 5-6 hours. Now, all of us in this class know that every single one of us in this classroom have these great, gigantic, beautiful ideas within us. Once those ideas get into life, they get messed up. Aristotle is good, but when he came to realize that his life is in danger, you know what he did? He ran away. Not like Socrates, not like Jesus, he actually ran away. Was that virtuous? Don't you want to die for the ideas in which you believe? Of course not. And that's one of the things you need to understand. Whenever you and I get tested, there's a passage in the Quran where, and I'm sure there are many in the Old Testament, where the human being or whoever it's that's speaking, you know, looks at God and says, please, please, do not test us, because we will surely fail. True, we will fail. So, are we good?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. When I was 5 to about 18, I enjoyed listening to Dariush and Sattar. They were singers in my country, very, very popular, great voices. When I got to be 18 and a half, 19, I met this older Persian guy in Sacramento, and he began to mold and shape me. All of a sudden, good, bad, pleasure, pain, everything changed for me. I dumped about, I don't know, 200 tape cassettes into the trash bin. I could no longer listen to them. It felt cheap. I began to listen to Persian traditional music. And the point I'm trying to make, what seems to be virtuous for you at the age of 17 or 18 or 19, when you're 25 or 30, you look back and you realize all the things you believed in were actually quite rubbish. Now you get rid of them, and now you begin to adopt new ones. Things change all the time.
26.
Whatever. But that's not the issue. Yeah. Yeah.
You talk about chemicals in the water or
Chemicals in the water? Pollution?
how that affects the brain.
I literally have no knowledge about those things.
Good.
The only thing I know is that it's best not to drink water from the toilet bowl. That's the only thing I know. That's all I know about pollution.
Not environmental science.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So let's tackle how you can get a soul. If you want milk, you go to Safeway. If you want to know how to make money, perhaps you listen to Andrew Tate. Perhaps you listen to, I don't know, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk. If maybe you want to figure out how to overcome depression, maybe you listen to Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud or Jordan Peterson. If you want to get yourself in school and out of school, if you want to know the ins and outs of how to graduate, maybe you'll seek out a counselor. If the point I'm trying to make, whatever it is that you want to do with your life, if you want to learn something, you realize that there are people out there who are proficient in that particular craft, and then you go and seek them out and you ask them some questions. And if, for example, you want to be a tennis player, you want to be a boxer, you find out where a gym is, you figure out where the coach is, you ask them what his schedule is, how much he charges, and then you go about it. And I suppose when you get to a place where you ask yourself, you know, my physical body is good, I have some emotions, some about the past, some about the future, they're okay. I am relatively intelligent. I've gone to school and I've made, you know, some degrees. I have a house, I have a job, I'm married, I have some kids. It seems that the basic aspects of my life is fulfilled. I have come to a certain stage in my life where I realize that despite everything that I have, I'm missing something. And let's call that missing component a soul. And now you want to go out and look for a soul. Well, the easiest thing that people usually do is go get books. After a while, they realize that books are not sufficient. Then they go seek priests or people, you know, who kind of like Jordan Peterson, Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, go on the stage and talk about how to give people souls. And someone like Plato or Socrates, you know, they look for people who they assume and believe that they have souls. The point I'm trying to make ultimately is, if you are in search of a soul, find someone who has a soul. And then they can hopefully create for you a physical environment. That physical environment will inspire emotions, will inspire thoughts. And if you're able to stay with the emotions and the thoughts for a while, and given that this is the 21st century, that you are an American with a good amount of trash inside you, if you're able to stay, again, with this person who has a soul for about maybe 15, 20 years, then maybe you can acquire, some degrees of a soul. Look at everything as a piece of art. That if you want to become good at that particular art form, it just needs practice and sacrifice. Now, here's the thing you need to understand about your question, which is really, really, really a good question. It's a question that is basically relevant to all the questions that you have asked today in this class about celebration, about molding, about soul, about virtue, about overcoming depression, ambition, balance, and all that. Now, here is Jamal. Okay? Now, Jamal is usually occupied with the basics of life. Food, shelter, clothing. Okay? School. Money. Social status. These things consume you. All of a sudden, Jamal wakes up on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning and has a brand new desire. I want a soul. Now, let's just say this happens to be your aim. It's no longer about food, shelter, and clothing. They're important. You're not going to dismiss them. But they're not going to rule over you. School is important. But you will plagiarize, cheat, do the least amount of work to get a C and get by. Okay? Money is important. But you're not going to be a slave to it. Okay. Social status is good, but you come to realize that most people in this class are nothing but liars and deceptors. Right? People cheat and lie all the time. Not because they want to, because we lack information, we lack knowledge. You look at someone and say, I love you. And when you ask them, well, what the hell do you know about love? They say nothing. Okay. Now, this is your aim. Do you know how difficult it is to keep that promise to yourself? What you're saying is, I want a brand new image of myself. Now, you're not going to celebrate this image because you haven't gotten there yet. It's a journey you have to take. It's a 20-year journey. And once you graduate, then you have the right to celebrate. This self lives in the future. This self is a product of the past, contains a good amount of fear. You need to find someone who can sell you a soul, which means you must always remember this aim. But for you to remember this aim, these components can't have too much force over you. And the only way that can happen is if there is a Socrates in your life that will pound you on a daily basis to make sure you remember the promise. Now, the thing about this particular promise or this particular aim that you have on In Search of a Soul is that, as far as I know, it's not something that you can see, touch, taste. So you're basically going to be in this realm of unknown for a long, long, long time. Doubt, fear, disbelief. You won't survive it. It's impossible. You can't do it. No one can. Not a single one of Jesus' disciples were able to. Not a single disciple of Muhammad was able to. Confucius wasn't able to. Malcolm X wasn't able to. No one can. You can certainly try. You won't be successful. And this is now to down your newfound goal or ambition. It's just to be realistic. Add to it another really, really awful component. You're a man. Men make lousy students. They make great teachers. but lousy students. Women, on the other hand, they make great students, but they're lousy teachers. Now, you may say, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah?
Don't you think that women have more patience
It has nothing to do with patience.
being a teacher?
No, I'm not talking about like teaching the classroom. Classroom teachers, they all suck, myself included. Most of us spend our days in our office reading books, writing books, doing course plans, going to meetings, going to the district. None of the ideas that we have are ever tested in life. You see that thing out there? There were two of them. One has to do with the ethical codes. I was on that committee about 20 years ago. Those posters were created by me. No, they're ugly. There is nothing good about them. But these are just words. People like words. The problem with those words is that they're not tested in life. And when you do test them in life, you realize they're not applicable. They're useless. So I'm not going to give you any more explanation as to why I say women make good students and lousy teachers, and men make good teachers but they're lousy students. Just trust me. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, but you should expect yourself to be a complete failure. Yes?
I don't understand. Like, what you mean. It shakes me the wrong way.
I know, it's kind of...
Can you expand on it more? I don't understand. Like, where does it come from?
It's my intuition. It's the child within me that speaks. I'm just kidding. I'm not completely sure if I can express it well. And I don't think anything under the sun can be explained and expressed well. Because first, language itself creates division, fragmentation. It is layered, and everyone interprets what they hear through their own filtration. I only speak because of my own experiences, and there is something about the way that men have been wired. They are extremely ambitious. Their egos are just wired in a very, very, very different way than women's are. There comes a point in every man's life where they want to be on the top. Every single man has an alpha quality to them, and every man, after a while, they refuse to submit to their superiors, elders. In other words, there comes a point where where Aristotle flips off Plato and goes his way. It happens to all men. It happens to someone like Ouspensky and Gurdjieff. There comes a point where he looks at Gurdjieff and says, "You suck. You have no idea what you're talking about." It happened to me and my own teacher. There is something about men that after a while they just refuse to kind of listen, to be respectful. And it's not because they have understanding. It's just something about them erupts and rebels and says, "I am under your submission no more. I can figure things out on my own." And what happens to a man when he walks away from a teacher is that because, for the most part, about 99% of the men, because their information, their knowledge base is incomplete and fragmented, they begin to teach others, but they lack the proper experience, intelligence, insight. And so everything goes bad. Okay. Women, on the other hand, they are really, really, really good of just sacrificing who and what they are for 20, 30, 40, 50 years without any complaints. If a man ever graduates from someone like a Socrates or a Plato, they can articulate and explain things really, really well. Women feel deeply. They really do. They're amazing. They just can't express their feelings, and rightly so, because feelings can't be expressed well. The other thing you need to understand is, biologically speaking, women have been gifted by nature or God with meaning and relevance and significance. You're 15 these days, you're 10, your body says, I want a baby. I'm serious. Your own physical body gives you meaning. The pain doesn't come from Donald Trump. The pain doesn't come from capitalism. The pain comes from your own cycle, monthly cycle. It's organic. It's in-house. Nothing is manufactured outside of you. Women are embodied. You need to understand that. So when they feel something, it comes from their soul. Men, on the other hand, look at us. We ask the most ridiculous questions. Look at the Old Testament characters. Look at the Quran characters. Look at all the great sages that humanity has created. How many women do you find who are confused about who and what they are, where they want to go into a nunnery or monastery and figure out who and what they are in the presence of God? Maybe what, 10? Maybe 20? Let's be generous, 1,000. Look at men. The Old Testament, thousands of men leaving their homeland, going to the desert, trying to figure out who the hell they are. We are just born to be confused. It's something that Aristotle had argued, not Aristotle, screw him, Plato. Women can never have false children. Never. Men, on the other hand, well, we can get biologically pregnant, but you can get pregnant with ideas, inspirations, assumptions. Look at our history. It's mostly written by men. At every corner, there is a falsity. At every corner, there is a mayhem. At every corner, there is aggression and violence. These are our kids that men create. So, let's move on. A celebration. There are two things that you should remember about ambition, balance, and read the New Testament, the Gospels. Again, not because you like Christianity or you like Jesus Christ. There's some really, really nice messages. In the Gospel of Luke, I send you out in the world. Be as gentle as doves and as cunning as foxes. When in Rome, do as Romans do. Don't take a philosophy class because you have fallen in love with wisdom. Don't write your essays filled with love and wisdom. SLOs, PLOs, ILOs, MLA, PLA, font 12, color black. Word count 250. This is Rome. Do as Romans do. Be ambitious when you go into Rome. Because if you're not ambitious, your basic securities are in jeopardy. You need money. You need shelter. You need a companion. If you can't find a decent human being, buy a dog. At any time, people could explode. Anytime. Sigmund Freud. Say hello to them. Be nice to them. Just don't get too close. من از بیگانگان هرگز ننالم که با من هرچه کرد آن آشنا کرد. It's only those who are closest to you that will harm you, hurt you, betray you. Be cunning. Don't be a lamb in the world of Caesar. Don't be a lamb. Plagiarize, cheat, lie. That's how you survive. You want to be virtuous all the time, have your own cult. Live in a place where society and its forces can't touch you. But make sure that once you are done with your sustenance from the world of Caesar, that there is another world that you can walk into and occupy and have its forces season you, mature you, mold you. You want to call the kingdom of God, you can. You want to call it art, you can. You want to call it music, painting, poetry, you can. You want to call your parents, fine. You want to call it the soup kitchen, it's okay. But make sure that you have access to both worlds. So, when you realize that the world of Caesar has poisoned you enough and you want to go back home and know how to be a dove. Know how to be a lamb. Make sure that the world of Caesar doesn't destroy everything good about you. You need to be ambitious. It's important. You know, God doesn't help anyone who doesn't help himself or herself. We're just going to talk about, where are you going? What appointment? About what? What was I saying? Something. The what?
Doves and foxes.
Oh yeah, doves and lions. There are people you need to destroy. Nothing wrong with that. Not destroy physically. Just they come to you and just say, buzz off. Don't want to be around you. Don't be compassionate. You know, don't keep forgiving your boyfriend because he's a drunk. That's stupid. Because if you keep hanging out with a drunkard, eventually you'll have no soul or no lamb or no dove left inside you. And you'll be in therapy for the rest of your life. You know, when you do get into a relationship, hopefully with someone healthy, be cunning. Don't take him to parties that will destroy the relationship. Don't hang out with people that have the potential to destroy the relationship. Don't have him just smoke and drink and watch porn. Be cunning. Remove freedom. Remove liberty. They're not the creators of happiness. In fact, they are the creators of despair. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they're good, only for mature people. And when you realize that he's behaved well, go home and be a dove. Take a nice shower. Make nice food. Go to the bedroom. Have a good time. Isn't that true, Ray? See?